Greetings, everyone. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, and loving life. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. And we've got a guest here tonight from one of the social platforms. His name is John, and I'm going to let him introduce himself and give us a little bit of what he's about, and we're going to go from there. And like I told him before the show, we might even do a review of a video I did a few years ago as it relates to HJR 192. So please welcome John, everybody. Greetings, John. How you doing tonight?
Well, Keith, I'm doing fantastic. Even though I'm cold here in Connecticut, I'm warm-hearted and I'm warm-blooded, so that's what counts.
Really Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just great to be here and on this platform. And wow, I love technology.
I hear you. It gives us a way to communicate much more conveniently and much quicker and more efficiently. So it's a great thing, and I think it's a powerful tool if we use it right.
Yeah.
So let's start out with we don't really care how old anybody really is, but we do want to kind of figure out what their experience is. So let me ask, what brought you to the stage where you realize something's obviously wrong with this system and you want to step up and do something about it? And in stepping up, what are the certain things that you're trying to do, and what your viewpoint is on those?
Well, Keith, I was born in the early 70s in Connecticut. I'm a lifelong resident, and all my life I've worked full time. I had two different jobs. So selling cars and selling furniture and delivering furniture. So I had account management also in between those, but that essentially is what I've been doing. A lot of research on my own, but it just kept going and going and going. I never thought it would become what it became. Is a totally inverted system. Everything that I was told is either false or partially false, mostly false, and it just, I mean, that's the long end of it, or short end of it. Sovereignty is to me very important. As I stand under God, the rules and the systems that we live under, Keith, are just totally at odds with who I am as a man on earth and what I believe in, what's in my heart, and what I was told I should be as a kid. I mean, our parents are training us to be good people and to be honest and to be hardworking, all these good things, and yet you go into the world and you see a completely different picture. So, anyways, that's the short version of who I am and why I'm here tonight.
So let me ask you then, what kind of accounting was it that you were involved in?
You mean as far as job experience?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an account manager. I was simply working for a furniture company, pretty high quality one, and part of my job was to just run the accounts and to make sure the past dues were in alignment, and to make sure that the customers were satisfied with their product. I was delivering also. I was a white glove delivery service. I had to wear a tie, and then of course car salesman. I was also doing financing for the cars. So I was always working though. Last 2 years I full-time researcher, but up until age 49, 50, I was full-time from 21 on. So
that's and you mentioned that everything seemed inverted, and that's my same view, and it was disturbing when I was like 49 years old, and I went over to talk to my mom and dad about the things that had been going on, because I'd already been doing a little bit of research here and there for several years. And when I went over to talk to them about it and stuff, and they saw the plates on my truck that said private property and this and that, and they've always been government work. They worked for government all their life, and so they believe strictly in following the rules as they're laid out by the government. And so when I started talking to them about it, and my mom looked at me and said, "Keith, the police are your authority," and that is one of the biggest inversions that I could have ever realized. Was the parents that were bringing me up and that had adopted me out of the foster care system, and were bringing me up in this church setting and doing what we're supposed to do according to society and everything. To my little mind at that time, it seemed right. And then as I grew up and I realized the various different things in my life that just went against my natural grain. I've always been a Tom Sawyer type guy. And so I realized that something was really wrong, and I was the one butting heads with the system, and it just felt natural. It didn't feel wrong. It didn't feel like I never felt guilty about anything. It just the system felt like I felt like the system wasn't right, so what I was doing was right in rebutting it somehow. Though I wasn't successful at it at the time, I knew what I was doing in my heart was a natural thing, and I came to realize that the inversion that I went through with my foster parents was the very indoctrination into that capitalist system. They were teaching me in a way to um, do certain things, but they themselves don't understand the capitalist system as I know it today, and neither did I. Now that I've done, the last 7 years of research and found out what this government really is and how it's structured, it is inverted. It is very much inverted. The American society doesn't really have a government other than a capitalist system that runs and administrates like a government. And if you understand what capitalism is, it's just merely competitive contracting. So even when you go to courts, those aren't governmental courts. Those are administrative courts of a capitalist system that's operated as a democracy when we're actually supposed to have a republic form of government. So at a point in time in my research, I thought we had switched from a republic form of government to a democracy, which is what many people today still believe. In doing the further research over the last few years, I've come to find out everything is about money. Everything is about capitalism. Every post that anybody fills in an office is an emolument, so they're getting paid. So that's a contract. And we don't have anybody other than what we saw recently with President Trump, who took upon the presidency and didn't take the emoluments. Now, that's not to say here nor there I don't support President Trump. I don't vote, never registered. So I come to find out that the inversion is a lot more inverted than most people realize. And this is just my opinion, of course, by the standards of my research I've done, which I've got over 20,000 hours of research, people. And I firmly believe that we do not have a government, that the people are the government. And if they just learned how to contract and learned what negotiable instruments were about, we could do our contracting privately. And for the public venue, they have a United States, which is a corporation that is obligated for all debts. So why not contract with that United States government in a proper form to fulfill their obligation? Well, the problem with that is a lot of people don't understand good faith. We're born into this system and we don't learn what it is, and we naturally end up with this state of fear because, like I said, my mom and dad taught me that you got to do certain things, otherwise they're going to come at you. And even though they came at me, just a lot of little stuff, interference with official acts, disorderly conduct, traffic citations, 6 offenses of possession, which I believe are minor things, just like the general population does. And yet, here we are in a day and age where people refuse to accept that they have to actually get off their ass and do something like research and learn. And this is why I say it's so sad to see that most of our younger generations today are walking out of high school and not picking up another book. They think they've already learned what they need for the rest of their life as adults, and that is so inverted. It's pathetic. These public education systems teach you nothing but to remember what somebody else wrote down instead of observing and interpreting and being able to convey your own truth. They're telling you to rebut or refer to somebody else's truth, And so we end up in a society that's so far delineated from what truth really is. Even if they did their research, they don't know what they're doing. We've been Babelized. I hear so many people speaking in Babel. It's pathetic. Greetings, Bleak Narratives. How you doing tonight, brother?
Cheers, cheers. Doing well. Yourself?
Awesome. John was just telling us how it's cold over there. We're looking at the weekend temperatures this weekend. We're not even going to get out of the minus here in Iowa. Where are you at? What's it like over there?
Currently, we're still doing all right. I believe sometime overnight tomorrow, it's going to drop into the negatives. So I'm in Kansas. It fluctuates, man.
Yeah, so you're going to be about 20 degrees warmer than we are up here. That's the general consensus.
Right. But nonetheless, Kansas is just like Cher, man. It's not fucking sunny anymore. Waka.
So oh yeah, and Hard Hat, he's up in Canada. 44 degrees below Celsius there. I don't know if it's. Are you sure it's 44 Celsius? I think it'd probably be 44 Fahrenheit. I'm not sure. But Blake Merrigan, could you tell us a little bit about yourself? What brought you to this platform as far as seeking truth and this and that? What went wrong in your life, or what did you see wrong in your life that opened your eyes to this stuff?
Mine is kind of a counter intuitive to what you would think. Much like my moniker, I earned the nickname Bleak as a child because of my sunny outlook that tended to piss everyone around me off. I came here because of the overwhelming sense of what you were just speaking of, the let me Google that for you sense that everyone has now, like asking me about procedures and for their district courts. Like, I don't know, man. I'm not from Gwinnett County, Georgia, but I also have the internet. Let me check that for you. I'm here to help, I suppose. And I don't mean to say, I just described that in a way that sounded cynical. And I suppose that was certainly not the way I meant to convey that. But what you had just said kind of really tugged at my heartstrings, man. It's the plight of man. It's 8 billion hungry ghosts. It's something else. I mean, to see this and observe it and not say something, it's already pretty foul. But to not try and help your fellow man, regardless, is just something that I can't abide. So I'm here to kind of learn, as always, but more so to help the people out of the bog that are still stuck behind me. I don't feel like I'm any better than anyone else or have any broader perspective. I'm just looking at it from a different angle, So
Awesome. So as many of you know about my life, I was put into foster homes and stuff when I was a kid, and then adopted and everything. I ended up in prison when I was 18. Got out. Thought I was fixing my life. I never went back to prison. I'll assure you that I never went back to prison after that. But I had a lot of difficulties in getting along with the rules in the system. But when it came
prior or subsequent?
Well, even subsequent, yeah. That was I went to prison when I was 18, so I never really had a chance to get out into society until after I got out of prison, and that's when the other 92 cases came along. That was my first case, and I grew up a Boy Scout and all that good stuff in my heart that John was talking about. We were raised to be good people and everything, and yet here we are. In our older life, and we're looked at as misfits or something. And I think a lot of that comes because people think we're all supposed to be the same, and that destroys the diversity, which is our empowerment. If we don't maintain our diversity, we lose the power of not just our imagination, but our actual abilities and our forethought of being able to improve ourselves. Because once we get into a set of being a system of being delineated as doing the same thing, it becomes a daily role of the same rhetoric, just like you would have in the Stepford Wives. If you've ever seen that movie, Stepford Wives, that's pretty much what we're looking at today, with the American society trying to, set a norm for the rest of the world or something like that. And then it's so convoluted with the different sets of laws that they pose that we're supposed to follow, like the statutes and U.S. Code and UCC and canon laws and everything. And that's why I say, we really don't have a government today. Everything is run on the UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. Everything is a contract. Right. All papers are commercial papers. Even a blank sheet of paper is known as commercial paper. And they even describe it as bond paper. It just has a different weight. And that's the weights and measure system as far as products. But then when you put your words on that paper, there's weights and measures to your words. And I'm telling you what, people can make contracts on paper without you even being involved in it, other than to repeat your words. You don't even have to write it in. If you watched my video last night, this system placates that everybody is subject to certain laws without their consent. And that's just blasphemy. There is no authority but that which is ordained by God. So to say that you have to follow their fictional laws as written down, as opposed to even the stone tablets that Moses brought down, those were written laws too. Again, it's in those same scriptures that were written, that I read regularly through the King James Version, as well as other religious scripts. That stuff's in our heart, and it's so simple. We're supposed to just, it's right or wrong, and that's it. And that's why I say this system is so inverted, because they placate that if you do this, it's wrong. Well, there are certain things, like I said, that are in your heart. You automatically know what's right and wrong. If you don't, then there might be something wrong with you. But I always suggest first looking at the words that are being used. And that's why I'm a big fan of etymology, and epistemology. Sure. Etymology is the root words, etiology is the root cause, and epistemology is the root knowledge. So in order to get to that root knowledge, you've got to know the root cause, and to figure out the root cause, you got to have the root words. At least in this, dictatorial system is what I'm going to call it, because it's dictating everything. That's what all those words do. They dictate. That's a dictatorial system. No matter how you want to look at it, it's pretty much synonymous with communism or fascism, or in that type of governments. And so we also see the things about the New World Order. What do you think about the New World Order, guys?
It's the old world. It's the old world order. It's been here.
Exactly. It's been around for a long time. It just changes over time to sway you to believe that you have your own power, which I'm going to tell you, you do. But what happens is that when you fall to the fallacy of a nationalism of any sort, no matter what kind of government they are, you fall to the dictatorial mandates that government poses. And that's where that thing from last night's video where I was talking about, it says in bail or bailment or whatever it was, that there are certain laws that are made that the people have no will or consent in, that they have to follow them. And that's bullshit. That's dictatorial. That's a dictatorship. And they hide it very well. They hide it very well. But at the same time, like I said, they give you this empowerment today in the modern age to see if you truly can self-govern. And the way you prove that you truly can self-govern is by learning how to contract yourself, because everything in this world is contract. So if you don't know how to contract, they're going to dictate those contracts for you. That's as simple as I can put it. It is a dictatorial system on a world level, and unless you learn how to contract, everybody else is going to dictate what you're going to do the rest of your life. You have to come out of those bonds. And that's, again, that goes back to that public education, teaching to remember shit that doesn't do you any good.
Yeah. Well, that's the key. That's the key, Keith. It's to dumb us down through schools, through television, through, just scare tactics. They got to do that first. Then we consent. Then they roll in with their system and still here 600 years later.
Or thousands, who knows? Well, I can trace, if we're to believe the current narrative as far as our historical timeline, and we take all that mud flood, Tartaria, phantom time stuff out of the equation, I can trace this thing back to Justinian Rome, to the Flavian dynasty. This particular dog Latin, all caps, non de guerre thing that we're fighting right now. It's been around at least that long, since Josephus, perhaps since Babel, as you were saying earlier, with Nimrod and the ones that ascended through apotheosis, allegedly.
Yeah, absolutely. And Moonbug says Patrick Paul Devine really opened my mind. And yes, he was a great guy. I wish he was still around. He lived just a couple hours south of me, and I met him a couple times, and he really knew what he was doing. Oh yeah, he was going for his Series 7 broker's license, not necessarily the license, but the test. You can take that test on the private side and not be required a license, but as long as you pass that test, you can become what's known as a private broker.
Right. Wow. Actually, I had somebody asking me about something relevant to that just the other day. They had gotten all their apostille stuff done with the birth certificate being authenticated, and then the going to the Hague and all of that stuff. But would you mind repeating that again? I know I can go back and rewind this later. And lately, I've been downloading everything that you stream anyways after it's up. So you're taking up quite a bit of room on my external hard drive, sir. But you got a lot to learn. You got a lot to learn from.
Yeah, 850 videos now, guys. So you were talking about the Series 7 broker's license.
Yes,
is that what you wanted? Yeah. The Series 7 broker's license, you can take a test and you can do it for a private broker, so you don't get a license. You just take the test and show them that you know what you're doing. And that's basically, how those contracts run and who the parties are, this and that, and how to set up the brokering. And that's the thing. That's what a contractor does. He brokers a deal. If you're going to contract, you don't hand it over to somebody else to broker it. You contract it yourself. So if you're a contractor, you can do this contracting yourself. For the securities, if you're going to issue securities, now you need a broker to make sure that securities contract is in compliance with the United States contract. And that's what that's about. But a simple contract.
Is this kind of what prevents someone that's in the know but not quite to that level from just say, and this is a complete hypothetical, just right from the cuff, but stops a guy like me from walking into a dealership and saying, hey, I'll issue you a note if you give me the vehicle and piss off, the not being able to have that brokerage license, or not being able to broker the securities like you were saying?
Right. And the difference is, again, folks, those are document papers or government documents. They're set out through the United States corporate entity for corporate contractors such as the auto dealerships and things like that. So they give you forms that are already printed up, and it's already got contract terms on there. So those kind of documents you can go ahead and hand over to a broker, and he's going to put the right information on there so that it gets brokered for your interest, for your benefit.
it's odd the timing with you bringing Patrick Devine up. I've heard in a lot of different circles from a lot of different people that don't tend to espouse a bunch of conspiracy-based nonsense that perhaps he had ascended to a level where they had to get rid of him. And I don't know anything of the guy other than his material. You know, I didn't know him personally or anything like that. But do you think there's any validity to the notion that he was maybe taken out?
No, not at all. Not at all. I don't believe that at all. He was an old man. He was going through health problems himself. He's a smoker like I was. So I think, I don't even know the circumstances, but I'm sure if I went and researched it,
Sure.
because I've never heard anything about anything like that. So, and I truly believe it was just a natural death.
Oh, these are mostly just the murmurs of people on Telegram and the little law society groups, and you know, the people that follow the gurus and the document salesmen. So I mean, it's the hens in the hen house making their general clucking sound, I suppose.
Yep. Yeah.
He was a good guy, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I love the shit out of him. You know, the two times I met him, we had a great discussion. I got on him about the Series 7 broker's license, because I thought he was going after the license itself, and I didn't realize that until after I looked through a couple emails. Matter of fact, just not too long ago, that it wasn't the license he was going for; it was the test, and so that as long as you pass the test and do it for the private broker side, then they would let you do the private brokering. And again, that's different than the Series 7 bankers broker. That's for the guys in the back room at the bank. Those are the ones that deal with the upper level type stuff we're talking about, with the birth certificate and all that, having it apostilled and then giving it to a bank to issue a $250,000 bond in exchange for it, as an international bill of exchange. You know, and that's still like the Series 7 broker, but you have to have a license to do that stuff as a banker for private people. Whereas Patrick was wanting to help people draw up their own instrument for, like, SEC, for private placements, instead of an initial public offering where you're going to sell your bond. You're just going to do a private placement, and what you're doing is you're setting it as a collateral asset with the United States debt. You understand? So it's not,
Yes, sir.
it's not being made public, but it's for sale or anything, but it's operating under the full faith and credit. And that's why I said earlier, they're going to do the contract, you're going to do the good faith.
Sure.
That's where the faith comes.
Sure.
The faith can't come from the fiction. It's got to come from you. So the full faith and credit.
The man instead of the slave, they can only plead guilty. Right.
Correct. And that's based on credit. If you guys understand what credit, that's what we're operating on today. We're not operating on money, and that's why I said we might even do a review of that HGR 192, because what we've got today is a system where they removed the gold, and then they removed the silver, and then they removed the banknotes, and now we have a system where it's all negotiable instruments.
Correct.
And that's actually, you can do that orally and have somebody else write it up, and that's actually what the money is. But again, this piece of paper as money may not have $1 put on it. You may not have a $1 sign and the $1 on there, but it's going to have the terms in there for values and stuff, the weights and measures and stuff, and that's based on credits. And everything you do in life has merit, and this is the good faith part. It either has merit or it doesn't have merit. If you're operating in good faith, it's merits, and merits literally stand for spiritual credit or spiritual credence. So in order for a good faith contract to apply, you have to have merits yourself. You have to have good faith and have that spiritual credence to make sure that the words in that document aren't false.
Keith, when you talk about good and greetings to all that is on
Yes, greeting,
tonight.
I man.
Cheers.
Yeah, that when I heard you were talking about merit and good faith and stuff, and my whole entire life was like, and I remember my dad was telling me the story on how when I came into the world, I was so tiny that I fit into the palm of his hands. And I've always, I feel I've been upstanding, my whole life, the best of my ability. So when you talk about these merits and these credits and these spiritual credits, and you walk in that, in the light of the creator, how does that work, with the world that we're in and this paperwork? Because isn't every paperwork that you're given is some kind of a copywritten documentation?
Well, your own name and everything has a copyright value, and that's the basis of everything. But let me pull something up, and I'm going to read a copyright. And this is why I say you can't sit there and go into court and placate any kind of truth. That's one of the main things I've learned is you can't go into court and try to profess any kind of truth. It's impossible. And I'm going to show you something. Because if you guys know me, I talk about the UPU, the Universal Postal Union, all the time. And they have a copyright and disclaimer. And that's what I use. And when we read this copyright and disclaimer, I hope you'll be able to see what I see, in that it's basically saying that nobody can really verify anything's true. So let's take a look at this. It says, the disclaimer. This is the UPU disclaimer. Anyone may use or reproduce any information presented on this website, subject to any specific terms of use that might appear with such information, provided that the use of such information is accompanied by an acknowledgement that the UPU is the source. The UPU makes every effort to ensure, but cannot and does not guarantee, and makes no warranties as to the accuracy, accessibility, integrity, and timeliness of any information presented on this website. The UPU assumes no liability or responsibility for any errors or omissions in the content of this website, and further disclaims any liability of any nature for any loss howsoever caused in connection with using this website, including failure of performance, computer virus, or communication line failure, regardless of cause, or for any damages resulting therefrom. The UPU may make changes to these materials at any time without notice. Hyperlinks to other websites are provided as a convenience only and imply neither responsibility for nor approval of the information contained in those other websites on the part of the UPU. This is how you disclaim liability, folks. The UPU makes no warranty, either express or implied, as to the accuracy, availability, reliability, or content of such information, text graphics, and hyperlinks. The UPU has not tested any software located on other sites and does not make any representations as to the quality, safety, reliability, or suitability of such software. As the case may be, the collection and retention of personal information by the UPU through its website may be subject to the terms of the UPU privacy policy. Nothing in or relating to this disclaimer or the UPU website shall be deemed a waiver, explicit or implied, of any of the privileges and immunities of the UPU. 2020 Universal Postal Union, all rights reserved. None of the materials provided on this website may be used, reproduced, or transmitted in whole or in part in any form or by any means, electronic or mechanical, including photocopying, recording, or the use of any information storage and retrieval system, except as provided. That goes to the individual laptop, your cell phone, any device you're using on your end, except as provided for in this website, see the disclaimer section, without permission in writing from the UPU or publisher concerned. So what they did is they gave you permission, provided that the use of such information is accompanied by acknowledgement that the UPU is the source. That is your permission. All you have to do is copy paste, folks. Access to databases of the UPU for consultation of documents and or information retrieval is permitted by the UPU, subject to the user's acceptance of UPU's provisions and conditions of copyright contained within each document, which obliges the user not to duplicate the document or parts thereof for distribution or sale external to the user's organization. Without prejudice to the foregoing obligations, such information may be utilized in receiving organization as required to further the work of the UPU. Such information may be utilized in the receiving organization as required, just as long as you don't sell it. That would be selling outside of your organization. So a receiving organization would be an outside organization, but you can use it internally. Okay, you can distribute it internally, but you can't sell it to an outside external organization. Without prejudice to the foregoing obligations, such information may be utilized in the so you can send it to an external, but you just can't sell it to an external. As required to further the work of the UPU to provide guidance for product or service development and implementation, and to serve as support documentation associated with a product or service. We support and adopt these notices in Ministry of Unity of Freedom of Transit pursuant to the 1611 version.
It seems like a lot occurred around 1611, and it seemed like everything has been commingled with the rewriting of the Bible, and and even organizations that you can always find something that's commingled and similar to that book. And just recently this video came up. It said that the whole Bible is literally a contract.
Yes, absolutely. When you read that Bible and you understand it and comprehend it, it's actually teaching you how to contract with your spiritual merits, your spiritual credence. It's telling you to use your credence. Make sure everything you say is as truthful as possible. And this is to let them know they must observe themselves. Otherwise, don't believe me. And the scripture tells you, don't trust another man.
Yeah, but that's what it does say in there. It says God, the creator, said, you don't trust in man, you trust in the creator. And my whole entire life, Keith, I walk, no matter what, I've always never treated people the way they treated me. They have the saying that they said, hurt people hurt people. I had the biggest heart, and I keep asking the creator, why did you give me this big heart? Because I have people walk all over me, mistreat me. I stand up for myself, but I don't hate them. I forgive them because they know not what they do.
Yeah, it's basically that simple. And that's what in case you didn't get what that UPU disclaimer is saying, it's forgiving you for any errors and stuff right up front. It's letting you know, don't take anything as true. Do your research. Go to another source. If you think something's not right, go to another source and double check it. It's a double check system. This is why they have a hard time shutting my channels and stuff down, because I'm good at double checking things and making sure. I had a couple medical strikes in the past, And if I'd have had this information before, all you got to do is read that disclaimer. Use that as your disclaimer. It's very well put together.
Yeah, and
Greetings.
it's just like you say, Keith, and it's just like, my brothers and sisters, but mainly you're supposed to cross your T's and dot your I's. And I've always double checked. I even, you know, I'm not perfect. I'm just imperfectly perfect. And I've always, in evaluating myself before evaluating others, I would look to see, is there something I'm doing, to make me a better me and walk in the light of the creator, just like it says in the footprints in the sand.
Yeah, and that's what I was talking about earlier. When we walk out of high school and don't pick up another book, we're not we didn't read, we didn't learn, and we never got taught that the rest of our life is to be spent being better and better every day. Nobody ever told us that. Our
No,
basic concept is to improve by going up a ladder, but that's in a monetary system. That's not improvement in spiritual or good faith or the treatment of your brother. In fact, I'm telling you, and I firmly believe it, that this corporate system, in order to make a profit, you have to take advantage of the loss of another man. That's not spiritual. Greetings, Hard Hat. How you doing tonight, brother?
I'm doing good. Yeah, real good. It's actually in the comments there. I fucking think it is. It's minus 44 Celsius with the wind chill here. It's like minus 30 something, and then the wind's blowing at like 20 to 30 kilometers an hour. Now this is all China units, right? But anyway, yeah, cozy as fuck in my camper. So no, it's nice actually.
Good deal. Good deal. I'm glad you're staying warm.
Just throw this out quick, just because I had a phone call, so I missed a lot of what was talked about here. But the lady that just talked about the footsteps in the sand, I don't know what you call that, but the saying, that short little story where God or Jesus, I don't know, the idea, they carried you, right? When you look back, and I have I 100% believe in the creator, and I've come back from being agnostic, and through this tyranny and learning again, coming back to God. I like to say creator because I'm not too a big fan of the Abrahamic religions. But anyway, back in my party days, way back when I needed to get my shit together, I was at a house party, and I'm in the washroom taking a piss in the toilet, and I got my one hand up, steadying myself on the wall, and there's this little the saying on the wall in a picture frame of the Jesus footsteps in the sand, and I remember reading that all messed up, and it having a connection with me, right? Like going, yeah, no wonder why, Hard Hat, you're still fucking here, because the creator has been guiding me and helping me when I wasn't able to walk, when I was fucking, filled with demons or whatever. He carried me through, right? And so I always remembered that little, at that party, seeing that thing on the door in the washroom and going, man, it hit home, right? And it's those seeds that plant that keep you going, right? To get through the tough times and stuff. But anyway, I'll be quiet and just listen here. Thank you.
Good to have you, brother. Good to have you. Good to see you doing good, brother. Okay, now I got a video I wanna from TikTok I wanna show real quick, because somebody said something about the birth certificate again, and that's what we're talking about. These documents, they're all commercial paper, like I said, and the original document is the statement of live birth at the hospital. And if you go back and watch last night's video about bail and bail bond and bailment and all that, that's a bailment. It's meant to be a bail. And what bail is, a bailee and a bailer. A bailer gives something to a bailee to use for a certain amount of time, and then it's to be returned. So the statement of live birth is something to be used by somebody else and then returned after its use. In this system, the way that document is set up is so that it creates a burial trust, so that if while in the possession of the state, the minor child passes away, the state will take care of the burial. And vice versa, if mom passes away, the state will take care of the child, okay, if there's no dad. Consequently, there is but one Father which art in heaven. Okay? Let me explain something to you about telling truth. I'm not nobody's father. My Father, I am his child, just like every last one of us. Hard hat, you said creator. We're the creation of, we're the child of our creation. So the scripture says there is no father, or there's, call no man on earth your father, for there is but one Father which art in heaven. So when people fill out those paternity documents, guess what they're doing? They're committing blasphemy in a Christian society. They're lying. In your heart, think deeply.
Yeah.
Are we not all brothers and sisters? If our children are his children, and we're his children, aren't those children our brothers and sisters too? Remember, John, I said earlier at the beginning of this video, we're not going to worry about ages. We don't care about the age. We don't care about the race. We don't care about the sex. We care about the Father and children. We are all children in the eyes of the creation.
Definitely.
And that's the only way I know how to express it.
And,
so
and the
when that
lies within us.
yes, and so when that documentation is created, and they have this proud young papa that wants to come up and sign that document, guess what he just did? He said he was a father. Instead of making a proper declaration that this child's father is in heaven and he shall protect him all of his life, and in that protection, our Father has assigned us as his trustee, and we are known as mom and dad, and we shall call him Keith.
Right. It's like
They don't need a
surrendering
last
your
name.
usufruct, huh?
Right.
Yeah, they don't need a last name. Does
Nope.
God have a last name? They always talk about the name of God. Is there a first name or last name? No.
No.
Same thing with God. Does he have a father? Is he a grandfather? Is that kind of stuff ever discussed? No.
No.
So let's take a look at this video as it relates to that birth certificate and everything. It's a short video, about 6 minutes, I think. Almost 7 minutes. But pay attention, because like I said earlier, the UCC is what this is all about. It's a capitalist society, which is competitive contracting. And if you don't know how to contract, you're never going to figure it out. And once you figure it out, as it relates to those contracts, you realize, like I said, to make a profit through a contract is to take advantage off the loss of another man. Unless you know how to contract privately and make it good equal consideration, any kind of public contract is going to take advantage of the loss of another man. Your private contracts, you can put the spiritual merits in there as long as you get the equal consideration of the spiritual merits from the other side. This is why I say, if I meet somebody and they don't have the spiritual merits, I don't want much to do with them, because they're going to want to try to take a profit from me. And that's just not right.
Sign
To what she is saying.
a stamp signature or a typed up signature is considered signed under the UCC. So when you get a letter in the mail,
And so when I talk about those stamps, folks, those stamps are considered a signature, in case you didn't understand that. This is just recent confirmation of exactly what I've been talking about with the stamps. So please pay attention.
and it has no signature, or it just have a stamp signature, then it is considered signed. The UCC is very, very important for people to learn about what's going on with their lives, because we are on the contract law, no other law. There is no law at all. In America, the court system is operated under military. When you walk into a courtroom, I don't care which courtroom, if it's a higher court or a lower court, They're under the military. Now you're walking in there.
You hear that? Yeah, she said in the military. It's military again. Like I've been saying, look at that damn flag on the wall or in the corner. It's got a gold fringe on it. That's military. Okay,
Right.
and just
Yep.
Right.
and just so everybody's clear, this is under 17 U.S.C. 107 for fair use content, education, and uh, uh, opinions and reviews. Nothing but opinions here, folks.
Right. Alternative to the
And
military
you're not
jurisdiction.
told that you've been tried under the military. If you mention the Constitution, the judge says it does not apply in my courtroom. But you don't know what he's saying because you don't know what they're doing to you when you're there.
And all of that language is designed to confuse the hell out of you.
Yes, it's designed under the UCC, and they know. They know what they're doing, and they know how to manipulate you.
So you're saying all judges are very schooled and versed in UCC?
Yes.
They're taking special training
Yes.
schools in order to learn it?
Yeah, the president appoints all the federal judges in America. And they go to Scottsdale, Arizona and Reno, Nevada to train how to apply this fraud contract in the courtroom.
And in the United Kingdom?
The United Kingdom, majority of the judges here in the United Kingdom are not judges. They're just doing business. They might be a retired lawyer. They're doing business as judge.
And so-called judges in Malawi and in Canada?
All of them, exactly the same system. They're under the UCC.
Okay, try to go and discover your own birth bond, let's call it that, and you try to discover the true value. How does one go about doing that?
You apply to the Federal Reserve for it. There's forms that you can fill in, and you can, once you find the bonds and the serial numbers, you can get it from the Federal Reserve because they have it.
And you can then discover the value of your bond?
Of course.
And the average, let's say, 50-year-old in the United States would be worth what?
50-year-old in the United States, it could be worth hundreds of millions.
Huh? What? No way.
But one comment, if you go on the website and you put in your birth certificate number, and it comes up only one, you have hundreds of thousands of people are trading on it.
Right.
That's only one that you know of.
I think what I'm getting at is, what do you think it would be the median value of the average 50-year-old by the time they turn 50 in the United States? What is being traded?
I would say
in NA?
I would say maybe $1 billion, over $1 billion,
Right.
has been traded.
Okay.
Because when I checked, on one of my numbers is over 283,000 people are trading on it.
Just one of hers showed 283,000 people trading it. And I'm still doing some more research on this. You can look your bonds up through Fidelity, I believe. I've got a group I do on Saturday mornings that I'm going to get with again this Saturday, and we're going to talk about that. So I'll be back this next week with another video on that, hopefully.
Oh, Keith, I don't, sometimes I don't even get your notification when you're coming on. And I put in so much reading already. I do so much, but I'm only doing it by myself because I don't get, I don't get the help that I need. And I've always been the type of, woman where I'm, I raised in community. Being a community, I'm one of the last, I call myself a community baby because I always worked with other people and studied together. And right now, the only thing I've had in this journey is just this lonely walk, but I don't hate it because it's made me, stand up and stand tall just the way I know myself within my heart. And that's, my whole life, my dad always used to, my dad and I always heard, you speak the truth will set you free. And the first time, like when I was a child and I watched my dad, he was a mason in masonry, and he was good at what he did, his tooling, and he showed me how to work. And when he took on a job, he did he did a contract with him and another man, and they would sit down, they would talk about, what it is they agreed upon within their contract they were going to put together between themselves, and then they thought about it, they put it on paper, and then they shook hands. They didn't go and publicize it, to the public to say we're going to do this, that, and all my whole entire life, my dad always said to me, your word is your bond, your word is your bond. And I always raised myself, and I stood by people, and through thick and thin, I'm not a patsy, and I'm not one to let people walk over me. But I feel that I stand strong in my belief within the creator. That's the only way I know. I can't be anything but that kind of way.
Absolutely. And when you say a man's word is his bond, that's the contract. And then we have the U.S. Constitution is a contract. Remember what I said here not too long ago about getting with the National Archives and getting a copy of the Constitution of 1787 and the Bill of Rights, 1789, 1790. And carry those with you, like he says. That's a binding contract. So all you have to do is show them their binding contract. That's it. They're the ones that are bound by those words. They're saying it's true, not me. Remember, there is no such thing as truth. So a man is bound by his words to as truthful as he can be. So when we look at that birth registration, and there's no birth registration in the United States. Oops.
And you know what,
Can you
it's
imagine how
crazy
much
that
money?
you say that, Keith, because just recently in the last week, you hear people come on, some people on YouTube or on different things, and this man was talking about the United States, just like the United States was the land that you walk on. And if you think about it, the United States is all these paper documentation. And
Right.
and so when you write on this paper documentation, you're transferring your energy, from yourself onto these papers. So they're always taking a part of you somehow to monetize it and merchandise you within this realm that we live in.
Yep. And Lenny Malley, I appreciate your comment here because it says the gold fringe around the flag means it is of the sea, not of the land. And that's the admiralty. And when you got that Constitution and the Bill of Rights, that's bringing the law back to the land, which they say they govern, and you're on the land, not at sea. So it's kind of helping correct that situation. And again, you're not part of the military. And that admiralty is Navy. Navy, as in nativity, as in naval, as in nation, as in all of those things. And when you claim that nationality, that's giving up that nativity of our Father which art in heaven that we spoke of earlier. You're claiming a patronymical father of earth. There is no father on earth. Understand that.
Yeah, it is.
So when we hear that the US has a debt of $23 trillion or whatever it is, that fictitious money was all pumped out of the air, but effectively it was discharged against the value of the people.
Yes.
Right. So that's where the fiction emerges.
Yes.
And it becomes this huge imbalance that no one quite understands. How on earth do we get that much money?
They just made it up as they go along and tell us what they want to tell us.
Yes, but they'll validate the making up of that money by, on paper, discharging it against the value of the citizenry.
And the citizens' gold, our sovereign gold. We have gold. For every pound that if you weigh 8 pounds at birth, you have 8 pounds of gold set aside for you.
And I'm going to say it's not 8 pounds of gold. Again, it's a fictional value. There cannot possibly be a pound of gold for every person born on this planet. That's an impossibility. So you see the fiction there in that it's a fictional value that if they're going to place a value of $1 million on a bond when a kid is born or whatever it is, and then it is sold and increases in value over that lifetime, that's still an impossible value. So I urge everybody to rethink this value system.
Assigned to you by whom?
By the Crown.
In England?
Yes.
And in the United States?
Yes.
By the Treasury?
Yes.
And
because the United States is owned by the Crown.
let's okay. So let's say there's 200 odd nations of the world. There's hundreds and hundreds of small island states. But there's about 200 nation states, big nation states. They are all of them a franchise of the Anglo-American Corporation.
Yes.
Let's call it that.
Yes.
And that the Anglo-American Corporation is an extension of the British Crown.
Crown, yes.
And the British Crown
Absolutely.
is collateralized by what, or backed by what?
Gold. And by the people.
By gold and by the people. And this is where they take that sweat equity. Okay? In 7 U.S.C. 136, it clearly explains that animal includes man. In that, your labor becomes the sweat equity, and the birth registration is that of an animal that is owned.
Keith,
That's what
it,
that
it sounds,
indicates.
it sounds like, we all go through these different emotions. And so when people, they say this love that you have within yourself, within your heart, and, a lot of times people say, well, I value, you value other people who are upstanding and are upright with you. And isn't that like, is that putting a value or a price on? I mean, I wouldn't say it's a price because I've never put a price on anyone. But when you value something that's close to your heart that you love, that's the kind of unconditional love the Creator says, because we're not supposed to hate one another. Because I just know from my birth name, my birth name is the divine child of God, and I always walk in that light. So the value you place on others, shouldn't one be placing the same value within yourself and within your heart? Don't people have that gold, a piece of gold within their heart, so they can allow their heart, the light to shine? That's the only way I know. Is that so?
Well, yeah,
Right,
and that's why I say I urge everybody to rethink that value system, and really taking in what is valuable to you. Is it their credit system, or is it your merit, which is your actions? Actions always speak louder than words, and if man is bound by his words, then he should do so meritoriously, from start to finish.
The hundreds of millions of people. The British Empire has just went on the ground. It's still there.
Controls the Bank of International Settlements, controls all the reserve banks around the world.
Yes.
Correct. So at what point do you believe the world sees through this grotesque fiction and then addresses the source code and then writes it?
I think if people get to know what the UCC and the contract law does, and your straw man is your main problem. Once you can control your straw man, and it is yours and not theirs anymore, then you're in the right path.
This is beautiful what you just said.
And again, if you go back to that video I did last night on bail and bailment and all that, hopefully that'll help you understand what she just said there, because that's what it is. It's a bailment. It was the bailer gives the property to the bailee.
I was reading, and then the Go Bail came up online, and exactly what you were speaking of in that last video you did. If you pull up Go Bail, the G-O and then the word bail, it literally everything that you talked about verbatim is within that reading, so people can go back and read it for themselves.
Well, I'll probably go ahead and read it here tonight, since it's I did the video last night and I didn't even know that. So I appreciate, and this is why I like people up on the panel, guys, because I don't know everything, and I covered a lot of different terms of bail, but I didn't know about the Go Bail thing. So we'll read that up when we're done here. But let's finish this up here real quick. And then I want to go to the Royal Warrant Holders Association, where she's talking about the Crown and its control, and we're going to show you how they have that control. what she's talking about.
You're talking about reclaiming the fiction that was established,
Yes.
the false light.
Yes.
Reclaiming the false light that was established in your name,
Yes.
given your identity, so to speak, at birth,
Yes.
without your.
And I did see your post on Lawful Living, dear. I did put my video up on that too, so thank you.
Knowledge. Yes.
You're talking about us needing to reclaim that false light and step into ourselves, our true selves,
Yeah.
as a people of the world,
Yes.
in order to reclaim reality from the fiction.
Yes.
That's powerful.
Yes, it is. And that's what I think everyone needs to do. All the sovereign people that's in poverty and whatever they put us in, that's what we need to do. We need to reclaim that what they are making money on, that is ours. Then you wouldn't have wars, you wouldn't have people fighting for money, you wouldn't have poor people. Everybody will be okay. Everybody. But they do not want you to. If you do that, that will break down their system, and they do not want that. So once you know, you need to get into it, and you need to start reclaiming your straw man. It is yours.
Absolutely true. Absolutely true. So when we think about that, we have to realize, like I said, that's your property. Mom gave information. That's a grant of information. She is the grantor. They established a trust. She is foreign from the United States, regardless of what the United States claims. That's a foreign grantor trust. All deposits are known as foreign deposits. When you learn this stuff and realize what they've been telling you all your life through those public education system, I'm telling you what, it will piss you off. I started out my research kind of trying to keep calm during my last case when I first started doing these videos. And you can see I was calm and I was just doing my videos. But the more I learned, the more pissed I got. And you started seeing it come out in my videos. Now I'm trying to calm down everything again because it is that disturbing. It is that disturbing. But again, through my learning, it not only is it disturbing, but it's actually beautiful. It's hard to contemplate how it can be disturbing and beautiful at the same time. But I got to give them credit. Whoever came up with this created something beautiful if you know how to use it. Because if you can use it to your advantage, like she said at the very end there, it destroys their system. And if we can destroy their system being operated against us one man at a time, as long as we keep doing that, keep growing and building, it will eventually destroy that system. And again, I'm going to remind you, not one government in the history of mankind has ever succeeded yet. Why is that? Again, there is no father but that which art in heaven. And if you're going to placate to a national patronymical father, you have fallen to the deceit already, period. So let's take a look at this next one as it relates to that, the crown and how they hold all the assets and everything, how they get them. How do they get them? It's called the Royal Warrant Holders Association. And I did a video on this here a few years back too. Now the Royal Warrant Holders Association says, welcome to the Royal Warrant Holders Association. The association represents individuals and companies holding royal warrants of appointment. That's a trust. That's the expression of a trust. And what are warrants? Well, it goes back to the truth issue. If it's warranted, then it can be put on the paper. If it's not warranted, then it's not put on the paper. The information is what is warranted. Okay? What is a royal warrant? Royal warrant of appointment is a document that permits a company to use the royal arms, and this is where we talk about the mail now. Okay? The royal arms, Her Majesty's mail. Okay? It's free. If you're not part of the Royal Warrant Holders Association, the UPU, and all those national components, and you're just a private being born under God, they're not supposed to charge you anything. You're only supposed to make bondsmen and bonds made of heathens. So as long as you keep acting like heathens, you will be charged and charged and charged again and again and again. Is in connection with its business in an appointed trading capacity. Appointed trading capacity. It is granted, again, grant being a term of trust, confirming once again that it is a trust. It is a grant for up to 5 years at a time as a mark of recognition, recognition. It was already cognized, and you recognize it in different form for the ongoing supply of goods or services to the royal household. Who provides goods and services to the royals? Who provides goods and services to anybody? Contractors. The monarch decides who may grant royal warrants. These are known as grantors. Her Majesty's Queen Elizabeth II, His Royal Highness the Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and His Royal Highness the Prince Charles, the Prince of Wales, all granted royal warrants. This structure is now changed since the Queen herself has died. We now have King Charles and Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, and we have a new Queen. The warrant is granted to a named individual within a company known as the grantee, again confirming a trust, who is responsible for the correct use of the relevant royal arms. The correct use. It is a usufruct, like John said earlier. Upon a change of monarch, we've got a new king, a new monarch. The royal household reviews warrant grants, while the company or individual may continue to use the royal arms in connection with the business for up to 2 years. And like I said, upon the death of the Queen, you watch, here soon, we're going to have a new money system, we're going to have new stamps, and we're going to have new contracts. Today, there are around 800 holders of royal warrants of appointment representing a huge cross-section of trade and industry, from individual craftspeople to global multinationals. They are united by a commitment to the highest standard of service quality, excellence, and craftsmanship. The Royal Warrant Holders Association was formed in 1840. Goodness gracious, wasn't that about the same time the Universal Postal Union was created? And did you know it's Her Majesty's Universal Postal Union? It's Her Majesty's Customs Codes. Uniform Customs Codes. That's the international UCC. Uniform Commercial Code is for the commercial contracts, and the Union Customs Codes is for the international harmonized tax system. To continued existence of the royal warrants as a treasured institution, today it continues to assist with the administration of warrants. All warrants have to go through the Postal Service, as well as advising members on all royal warrant matters. The association is not part of the royal household, but belongs to its members. They own it. It is not part of the royal household. It is something distinct and separate that they own. Membership is open to all warrant-holding companies. Alongside its partners, the association offers a full events program and opportunities for members to connect at a national level and through its local associations. It also supports local charities through its charity fund and craftspeople via P.I.G.S.C.U.N.T.S. I urge you to look deeply into this charity stuff, folks. Once a year, the association also awards the Plowden Medal for the advancement within the conservation profession. Those easements around every property that has a postal address on it is relative to the conservation laws, and it goes to the international level. when you start learning this stuff and see how they use the same construct through all different levels of quote government, and realize that they're all trusts performing contract services and providing contract services and goods, then you might want to think again about what you're putting down on any piece of paper anywhere. I urge you. Again, chapter 69, Book of Enoch, verses 8 through 11 tells us that we were taught by the angel Penemu how to read and write, but that was our very downfall. And it's true. A man's yea be his yea and his nay be his nay. Why would he need to write it down? Shouldn't he be able to speak it? That's called an invoice. Invoice. It's where they get that. You can make a contract verbally. Hallowed be thy name. Hallowed be thy name. Stamp it, baby. Stamp it with her royal majesty's stamp, and let it be known this is all for charity. I don't know what's true or false. I can tell you what I know through my observances, and if you think it's wrong, then you'd have to show me. So
And
again,
that's why they always say charity begins at home and ends abroad. They mean you're supposed to watch after one another, and you're not supposed to go against one another. And in your charity, that charity is a unconditional love where you help your brother and sister up, so everybody can be whole and there's no part. Everybody needs to be
absolutely,
whole.
absolutely. And I'm telling you what, if the people know the right concept of charity, it's what is given freely that we're supposed to freely give. It's scriptural. That's the very definition of charity. So we really have to think about everything that's put before us, particularly at the beginning of the life that we bring into this world. If we're going to start signing documents and putting their name on it, I urge you to rethink that. I urge you to rethink that. Attaching that last name and saying, well, that's because that's his father's name. Again, nobody knows the name of God. So why are we putting those last names down? Well, that's where he came from. No. We come from heaven. That's where we're citizens of. That's where we're supposed to be returning to, according to the most people's concept. Yeah, there's atheists out there and Satanists out there, but a Satanist even realizes there's a God. He just believes that Satan has more power and will wield in better things in this earth. That shows that they're materialistic. So, unless you guys got anything else, I think I'm going to cut it for tonight, but we'll be back tomorrow night. Oh, no, wait.
You're going to read that?
Yeah, I'm going to read this
Go
bail thing first. Let's read this go bail thing first, because I think that's important. I've not read it yet. My apologies, sister. I like I said, I posted the video on your post yesterday, but forgot to go in to check this. But what we're looking at here is go bail, again, from LIIWEX. And it says go bail is a slang term for putting up the bail money, cash or bond, to get an accused defendant out of jail after an arrest or pending trial or appeal. This is to ensure that they will appear in court when ordered to do so. If the defendant doesn't show up, the bond money will be forfeited unless the defendant is found and returned, and the court may keep the bail and issue a warrant for the defendant's arrest. Most jails have standard bail amounts for common crimes. If the defendant wants to post bail but can't afford the amount required by the bail schedule, the judge may lower the rate if the defendant requests. If the defendant violates the condition of the bailout, the judge may revoke bail and order the accused to be rearrested and returned to jail. Sometimes people are released on their own recognizance. Remember that recognition? Or OR. A defendant released on OR must simply sign a promise. So you're going to sign a promissory note to show up in court and is not required to post bail. Commonly, a defendant who is released on OR has strong ties to the community, making them unlikely to flee. Factors that might affect an OR release include having family members living in the community, or having resided in the community for years, or being employed, or having little or no past criminal record, or having been charged with previous crimes and always appeared as required. Interesting. 93 cases, 94 now, 11 of which I signed UCC 1-308 and never showed up in court. They didn't process it as failure to appeal or for failure to appear, but just simply adjudicated it as guilty and assessed the fine, penalties, and everything. And they still haven't issued any bonds or warrants, coincidentally. Funny how that works. But I did see the bailout here as well and warrant. We're going to take a look at those real quick. A bailout is when government gives financial support to rescue a company that is in financial trouble and possibly at risk for bankruptcy. Interesting, huh? Do you suppose that they issued a bail or a bond or a warrant for these banks that went under because of their bullshit activities? No, they bailed them out. They just bailed them out. That's interesting, huh, folks? The bailout enables the survival of the company. Remember what I said, when you go to court, they convert that name and they convert the number and they consider you a firm. They consider you a company. And they just bailed you out. They just bailed you out. That's what it sounds like to me. Interesting, sister, interesting. I appreciate that. The need for a bailout often arises out of financial crisis or national emergencies that particularly affect certain industries. For example, after the terrorist attack on 9/11, the airline industry was especially hard hit and received an $18.6 billion bailout. The bailout support can come in the form of cash that does not have to be paid back, loans with favorable terms for the entity receiving the funds, bonds, and stock purchases. Typically, the government also sets higher regulation and oversight of the company, requiring them to restructure the company or cap salaries of executives for a time period. Governments provide bailouts in order to maintain regulation of the overall market and economy and to avoid further collapse of the system. In Chicago Unbound, Eric A. Posner writes about bailout regulation in his journal article, A Framework for Bailout Regulations. He defines a bailout as follows. So now we have a second bailout definition. A bailout occurs when the government makes payments, including loans, loan guarantees, cash, and other types of consideration, to a liquidity-constrained private agent in order to enable that agent to pay its creditors and counterparties when the agent is not entitled to those payments under the statutory scheme. This is getting funnier and funnier, folks. So all those bonds that they posted in the court cases were for a bailout for you. Proving again that if you're the principal on that fucking bond, they're supposed to be sending you payments. When his last comment means that the agent or recipient receiving the bailout is not entitled by law to receive those payments, yet does anyway. Interesting. This makes some people uncomfortable because they see it as encouraging risky or irresponsible behavior. Businesses that operate on the private market are expected to manage their debts to make sure they can pay the debts they acquire. That is why Congress wanted to end bailouts in 2010 Dodd-Frank Wall Street Reform and Consumer Protection Act. The act states that emergency lending should be done only to provide liquidity when there is enough security for the loan to protect taxpayers and not to aid a failing financial company. To protect the taxpayers and not to aid a failing financial company. Huh. Interesting how the United States, being that bankrupt company that's obligated for all debts. So let's look at warrant. Warrant. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Where's the T, folks? Or the Y, I mean. Where's the Y here? We went from warrant to warranty, so let's look. In general, a warranty is a promise, assurance, or statement made by the warrantor regarding the existence or accuracy of specific facts or condition, quality, quantity, or nature of good or property. There are express and implied warranties, both of which are legally binding commitments. Now remember, when it says accuracy of specific facts, remember I said the information must be warranted. In other words, it must be accurate. In contracts, a warranty is a stipulation that makes part of the contract. Therefore, the warrantor must strictly comply with the warranty. Otherwise, there would be a breach of warranty. Warranty and guarantee do not have the same legal meaning. A guarantee can be defined as a person or entity to whom a guarantee is made. See the two different spellings? You see what we're talking about when we talk about Babel, folks?
Exactly.
So a guarantee can be defined as an undertaking or promise from a guarantor to a guarantee. So, is that kind of the same thing as a bail? Bailer and bailee? See, if you're going to give a promise to somebody, you gave him something, and it's dependent upon a term, a span of time wherein you have to perform certain things that are guaranteed. So once the contract is done, they're supposed to return that promise. Well, in that guarantee situation there, that's a performance of activities. And so you're giving each other guarantee that if you do this, I'll do this. If you do this, I'll do this. If you do this, I'll do this. So it's dependent upon, again, that bail situation. If you give, as a bailer, somebody else property used for a certain period of time, including a name, that name that mom wrote down on that document, and then she handed it back to the birth clerk, and the birth clerk entered it into a general ledger and created a financial establishment. So the United States is using usufruct, a financial establishment, in the name that was granted by the bailer, mom, without a bail condition. There was no bail condition placed. But by natural course, again, the inheritance and the legacy that comes from your mom and dad are inherent. Every logical, reasonable man of age of majority can tell that no man would give away his inheritance to somebody that wasn't part of his family. Automatically, it's supposed to go to the oldest son. So, again, in a situation where mom creates a document that has your name on it, it's intended for your specific benefit or hers, one or the other. Equal consideration of the benefit. The United States is benefiting from it all along. And not only have they been benefiting from it, but they've been using it against us to our detriment. It's
you know, Keith, what I see in my mind's eyes as you were talking, And when you talk about the warranty and then you split up the word, there's the warrant, and then the Y in the warranty is the Y. And the Y is with the U. Do you see? And you have to be able to see with your real eyes, realize with the real eyes, with the real eyes.
It's amazing. Realize the real eyes with your real eyes. And it's just astounding to me how much I put out in this to try to get people to understand that over the last 7 years. And most people just don't want to do it. That's the sad
It's a
thing
lot
I
of work,
mentioned
man.
earlier.
It's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. It bridges that gap. You know what I mean? At that point, people probably feel defeated, and then they have to admit subconsciously to themselves that their parents were idiots and that their parents were idiots or lazy or scared. And that's not something that most people can give an accurate self-assessment on. We're not good at internal audits. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and that goes to the public education system again. It wasn't too long ago in my history that I remember that they changed the public education by one lady saying, "Leave no child behind." And what that placates is that the guy that can go ahead doesn't get to go ahead. They hold him back.
Yeah.
So the other people that are not keeping up with him feel comfortable that they're not dumb. When in fact, that's exactly what this public education system is doing, is it's dumbing us down by, again, telling us to remember things that somebody else observed and wrote down.
Sure, lower the
Even,
bar. Let me Google that
yeah,
for you. Yeah.
yep. So we really have to learn how to start opting out of these things. Like our metaphysician says, opt out, people. There's no fixing it with direct attack from without or within. Only way to fix it is not use it. Therefore, there is no demand for it. Then they're fucked. And that's exactly what the lady was talking about in that video with TikTok. You take it out of their hands and learn how to control it and only use it for private contracts while holding them to their word that they're bonded by, which is their contract, which is public, and say, no, this is a private contract. Your contract is with the public, and you cannot interfere with my private contract. Here's what says so. Your contract.
My brother Keith, is there a possibility that we could get a wrench or somebody in the group here to start dropping some links to some of these commenters and perhaps some of the other people on the panel here to their channels? I don't know if you guys make content, but I'm in the habit of subbing people even if they don't. You never know when somebody's going to start, and there seem to be a lot of really brilliant minds sparking here together. Kind of firing on all
well, yeah,
cylinders.
I don't want to hand out wrenches, but what I will do is I will offer anybody that wants to come up on panel and drop any links in the back chat. I will be glad to drop them down in the lower chat for everybody myself.
Sure.
Okay. I'm not trying to censor. It's just that I've got to mediate so that we don't have slaves coming up here dropping nude bombs.
I didn't know if you I didn't know if you had any mods. I don't actually have people that I'm not too concerned with stuff on my channel since I lost my larger channel, but I don't I don't generally ask questions like this too often. But there's some things that have been said tonight in the chat and in the off the panel that were pretty profound. You know what I mean?
Well,
yeah, you can't ignore
and
size.
Josh, we were talking about Admiralty Maritime earlier, and that's exactly what it is. It's the law of the sea that they brought onto the land, and it's surrender of the prize of the prize vessel. See, they captured that vessel, and it's in bottomry, and bottomry means that it's the lien on the vessel lasts until the last plank, and usually the last plank, when a ship runs aground, the top of the ship all falls apart and everything. The last plank left is the bottom plank. So even if you're down to the last plank, you can salvage it. You can get another vessel, pull up on that beach, pick up that bottom plank, take it back home and say, hey, I'm going to rebuild this vessel. It's salvation. and you get a
That's
reward
like
for
the
doing
opposite
that.
of
You get a
it's the
reward for
opposite of
doing
this
that.
is a ship.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know, Keith, as you were talking about that, and you were talking about their admiralty, right? And in the way that I see that spiritually within myself, you have to be an admirable person by standing up. And that's the admiralty. So in the United States, when they talk about the United States, and I know you broke the word down where you said there's the unit did. It's the unity between people and unconditional love. So if the pen is supposed to be mightier than the sword, then we are supposed to not use the pen, but go within our heart, because the words that we speak again is bond, and it makes us all admirable. I
Yep.
yield.
And what does the admiral do? The admiral is the one that appoints the captain. So in admiralty, that document is placing a captain in a vessel. You're the captain, and you're being held to the duties and obligations of a captain on the sea while you're on land. It's amazing how this is constructed. Admiralty, Joshua Jr. I wish you'd come up, brother. I really do. You could help out with these panels a lot, brother. Admiralty, natural law, international law, and equity. I judge the chancellor. This is where we get into that international venue with the UPU and the director general of the International Bureau and the federal chancellor of the Swiss Confederation. Why are we talking the Swiss Confederation? Because it's the Swiss franc that they operate on now. That's the weight and measure system. And the UPU is where? Bern, Switzerland. Yeah.
Right.
It's the seat. It's
Right.
the seat of the New World Order that's been around for so long, and it is equity. They do operate with a chancellor. They do have a director. Like I said, you're supposed to be giving them directions. It's everything in equity is our workaround of the legal fiction.
Agreed.
Common
Right.
law was merged. Equity was merged with common law, so they could administrate in common law under a governmental body. So again, we have a constitution that says we have a republic form of government that's operated militarily as a democracy and then administrated through the UCCs, both the international UCC, Uniform Customs Codes, and the UCC at the state levels, which is still international, which is a Uniform Commercial Codes. So you got Uniform Customs Codes, international, because you got to cross borders. You got to have customary things, and you have to make customs declarations. What's your customs declaration? My Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. My Lord preserves my going out and my coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. That vessel you created is fiction. That guy on there that claims paternity, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to claim any father on earth, for there is but one Father which art in heaven. I don't give a rat's ass about my mom and dad. You understand me? Yea, I shall hate my father, I shall hate my mother. Yea, I shall even hate my own life. For if I'm not willing to put up my life like Jesus did, I cannot follow Jesus.
Man, I love this channel. I can't tell you how much you've touched my life personally, man. You know what I mean with your words. You are I don't know, you're a godsend, man. These last several years, since the disappearance of my wife and kids and stuff, it's been a literal hell on earth for me. Some of the only solace I get is when I come here. Sometimes I question whether that's healthy.
Yeah,
Social media.
And yeah, and I that's why I when you mentioned about the wrench, this metaversal platform is so full of heathens and deviants, it's pathetic. So this is one of those places.
We're in a temporal existence. You know what I mean? We're in a temporal form, in a temporal place, in a temporal space and time. You know what I mean? And we're not temporal beings. So of course it's got us, off of our even keel, I suppose. Not to make excuses for the masses, but I mean, I'm an Aquarius, I suppose. I'm not to lay too much into astrology or anything like that, but it's in my nature, to be humanitarian. Even like our friend here, our bearded friend here. I went to seminary at Manhattan Christian College, and when I discovered El Elyon or El Shaddai was Bel Saturn, of the Phoenicians, of the Canaanites, if you read it in its original form in ancient Greek and ancient Hebrew, the signs are, man, they're a mile wide and lit and blinking. But I when I found this, I left the faith, and I wasn't just agnostic. I was at first, after ripping the Band-Aid off, and then I was a staunch, in your face, really foul atheist for 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. And it wasn't until 2020, and I started to see what was happening in the world, and started to harken back to the, the seals and Isaiah. Isaiah says a lot about, they'll cry out for drink, and the moon will be confounded in the sky. And now we've got the Tycho crater going from, 6 or 7 o'clock where it used to be every night to 11 o'clock. Almost like this place is on its ear. You know what I mean?
I haven't heard about
something
that one.
Isn't right.
I haven't heard.
Yeah, it's something else. There are some people with some pretty crazy theories, but if you watch just the polar, like the electromagnetic fields, the field lines surrounding ball Earth, spinning water ball Earth in the vacuum of space with the heliocentric model, there's something breaking our field lines. I'm sure that you guys are familiar with the north-south magnet, with the metal shavings, and how it creates a toroid. And the only way that you break these field lines is by introducing another magnetic source. And there's something trailing us in this model, the heliocentric model, where everything's moving on a plane, on a helical axis. There's something behind us that's opening our field lines, and you can catch it on ISWA. It's making the signature of the Eye of Ra, which goes back to what you were saying about the Swiss and the bloodlines and the Franks. This goes back to the pre-dynastic Egyptians. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
the
Kemet.
the pharaoh.
Yeah, pre-dynastic Egypt was Kemet. That's where I got my name.
And Kemet,
that's where I got
alchemy and the word Kemet. It's really you were talking about the etymology, and we've spoke before about the ethos and the mythos and the logos, and how these things all tie into everything.
Well, see, that's where I got.
Quite clear.
Well, see, that's where I got the El Hotep Second Pero. You guys just know it as El Pero here, but the full extension is from my Facebook page. It's El Hotep Second Pero, and Hotep means peace. Second means between the two, so it's peace between the two, and it's El and Pero. El is the God, the lowercase God, me, the physical being, and the temple.
Right.
The physical being, this here is the temple. The God in this temple is my spirit, okay? And there's peace between my spirit and my body. That's all that means. And I got it from ancient Kemet language. So it's just amazing the journey I've been on, and the information I found, and what I've come to discern in my own life. And again, guys, like I said earlier, despite how egregious it might seem and everything, it really is a beautiful thing once you understand it. And if we can get the full grasp on this, and like I said, I've got a Saturday morning group I work with, and we're making great strides in that, and we're almost there on a couple things. We've got one gal that's that just recently got a check for a good amount for some arbitration difficulties, and then we've got another gal that's working on a car through private arbitration because of the securities and under the obligation of the United States. So, like I said, when that kind of information, we get it clarified and everything, then I'll be able to start showing people how to do that. It won't be done on these platforms because this is throwing pearls before swine here. This is why
Sure.
I do not do. This is why I do not do anything but research and give you my own discernment on things and tell you, don't
Sure.
believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government, for crying out loud. Don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. Quit believing all the fiction. Remember the disclaimer. You can't believe anything's true. You have to do it yourself. No other way to do it, guys. No other way to do it, guys.
I noticed a comment here about Santos eyes. If that's a reference towards me and Bonacci, I suppose. These things,
Well,
they've come to many men. You know what I mean? Whether it's Jung or Bonacci or Micah B. Dank. You know what I mean? Hell,
well,
Manson knows some of this stuff.
yeah, and
You know,
if I
it's
wanted,
apparent.
yeah, and if I wanted to get into that kind of stuff, I could, but it's one of those things where I'm sure I would be deemed kind of like Santos too, but I've seen things where you can see light fractals, and they show it. You can see the toroidal currents in the light.
Absolutely.
You can see
I also know
toroidal
this place to be
currents
something different than
in light. When you
Right.
see it, when you see a light bounce off of a piece of glass, it's just like looking outside and you see a rainbow. When you see light bounce off of a piece of glass and you can see the colors, in those colors, the colors will all be separated just like the rainbow. And certain instances, I've seen it a few times, certain instances you can see the various different toroidal currents provided by each frequency of color.
I'll have to show you
As
some of my documentation from the RC several years ago. I had come into some time with some of these people that have a finer understanding of these things.
Yeah, and
Pretty
that's
neat research.
and somebody else mentioned earlier it covers a plethora of different things. This whole system has deluded us in our belief system to not be able to observe so many things. And that's why I urge everybody, quit sending your kids to these public education centers.
Right. Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah, yeah, you are
They're
so
mills.
right,
They're
Keith.
puppy
And
mills.
a lot of these, single parents, the single parents, especially the women, it seemed like the whole system was set up against the women. And so and if you have to really see yourself for who you are in your own mind's eyes. That's why it seems like we're going through the separation, the wheat from the chaff. And that when we have the news, and the great news is the N, the W, the E, and the S, or the N, the E, W, S. It's all north, east, south, and west. And that's why the polarities, and we're going into the new paradigm, the new age of Aquarius, because that's what they were preparing us for in the years of the 60s and the 70s.
There have been things building up to this. I was going to say the whole love thing is a fifth dimension, or a fifth vibrational pattern. You know what I mean? It's yeah, absolutely. Boy, this is really resonating.
And I kind of wonder, I've noticed in the social media setups, in my real life, I don't find too many people that have any kind of real intelligence. But on the
Correct.
social media stuff, I found a lot of people that are highly intelligent. And
Well,
I
some
kind
of
of
us
wonder.
realize that the internet's not just for porn. You know what I mean?
Well, no, Well, no, I kind of wonder if some of the people in the early 60s and stuff, when they were doing all those heavy dose drug experiments with PCP and LSD and all that, if that didn't have some kind of effect on the biology and genetics of some of us that came out of that. You know, Gen X marks the spot, you know.
Right.
X might be the spot in time that, you know, like you said, age of Aquarius, and finally things are going to turn around and the people are going to start prospering. You know, all this kind of information is coming out and kind of seems to be coalescing to me. While everybody seems to think that the world is falling apart, I see a lot of it actually coalescing.
There's something attracting minds like this into groups. Absolutely. Going back to what she'd said about studying alone earlier, you know, Bukowski had said things about solidarity and solitude being a gift from the gods. I think, to be precise, but you know, I get what you're saying. There is something kind of bringing these. I don't want to say like the cream rising to the top, but there's something bringing us together. Certainly.
Absolutely. And Gift of God, I want to thank you for your comment, because you're right. It's not really all that hard, guys. It's all about tax ownership, control, or it's all about tax ownership, control, rights, knowledge, and know-how. And I'll say this: when I first got out of prison, I explained earlier, I worked for like 6 months in a packing plant, started my own sales and marketing, and in that, the contracts that I made on the private side while working with all these people, bankers and lawyers and associations in the towns that I did shows in. Most of all, I did most of it over in Nebraska, in Norfolk, Nebraska. But I did move around and start up a couple other offices for other guys. But basics of it is that when I did my contracts, I would do like sporting events or something like that. And I would sell tickets to the events, and I would sell ad space in a monthly magazine. And so in the sales part of the agreement, there was 10% that I would set aside. And whoever the other party was that I was contracting with for the event, I let them choose their local community charity. Remember, we spoke about charity earlier? This is what tax is all about. Tax originally comes from the term tithe, which means gift. So if in your contract you place a gift to a local charity of 10% of the income that you raise from the tickets and all that, guess what? IRS can't get involved. It's a private contract. You're paying taxes on the private side. It's in your contract.
Is the 10% biblical? Does that tie back to the story about the guy who didn't tithe correctly and was struck by lightning or something in the field? Yeah.
Yep. And it also goes to the parable of the talents, the knowledge and the know-how. The knowledge and the know-how. If you don't know how to contract, guess what? You're going to get screwed. It's the same thing as having a talent. It's the same thing as having a talent and hiding it. You've been taught to be Babylized. You graduated high school. You thought that's all you needed to know, so you didn't learn anymore. You hid your talent. You've got such a great talent to continuously grow in knowledge, and you give that up at 18. And that's why it becomes so hard now that we're 50 years old, because we lost 30 fucking years when we could have been learning a little bit at a time over that 30-year period. Plus the public education. If we went back to teaching our own children as we got older and wiser, we would teach our children, no matter what the age, as much as we could teach them, so that even when they became an adult and had a good comprehension, when we learn new things and we're 50 years old and our son is 30, we can still teach him that new thing and he'll catch it right away. It's not going to take a matter of time. So the passage of knowledge amongst adults that have a good comprehension is almost immediate. Whereas the teaching of a child is going to take about 18 years in that 18 years, you send them off to a fucking public education system. That's just stupid. It's just stupid.
You know, Keith, as you say that, I was thinking, because, you know, sometimes they say words, you know, words hurt, you know, depending on how it's used. And so, and sometimes you hear, and just like in your post you did the other day when you had something about the bitch something, and I thought about it, and I didn't see it as anything, a connotation of negativity. What I saw is the B being the brilliance, the I being the intelligent, the T being the talent, the C being the charitable, and the H being honorable when you walk in this light. And that's how it is. The bitch in you.
Wow.
It's got to be in you first.
That's
Nice.
that's an awesome way to express it, because I'm the only one I'll be a bitch to.
Like measure, say measure.
All right. Well, we've certainly had a
Nice.
good night tonight. I appreciate everybody coming up, but as you know, I don't like to make them too long because people get bored with them quick. So I like to keep them
Right.
usually about an hour or so, but 2 hours I don't mind so much when I've got a panel. And hopefully one of these days I can start doing some longer panels on deeper topics. You know, if we want to get into the toroids and the Santonized stuff, we can do that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
But for now, these kind of videos here is for the people's knowledge to help correct that vessel and salvage it for the bottomry, because it is a usufruct system. Somebody else is using your vessel, charging you as the captain, and saying you're the cause of the dereliction. So we just have to correct that kind of shit. And again, I'm telling you, the scripture teaches us how to do that. Leviticus 25 verses 23 through 25 tell us that as long as we walk with the Lord as our sojourner with Him on His lands, you know, the creation created this land, so it's the land belongs to the creation, just like the Nave said, we belong to the land doesn't belong to us. So as long as we keep that concept, and He is our Redeemer, then He passes that talent on to us. He gives us freely the ability to redeem, and therefore we can freely give redemption to others. That's our true purpose. That's our true talent. As long as we use that as our goal, that's doing unto others as what we would have them do unto us. I know if I saw somebody out on a body of water and their boat was sinking, I would have to go get them in my boat.
Correct.
So again, and that's called faith. That's called walking on water. Your redemption, your ability to redeem. That was the story of Christ walking on water.
And in redeeming yourself, one has to go to the bottom to get to their lowest self. And in order to get to your lowest self, so you can bring yourself back to the light of the world.
Absolutely.
Well, it's like Dante.
And remember, when you rebuild a vessel and you salvage a vessel, what do?
You have to bring it up from the bottom of the sea. So it's all about salvaging yourself. And no one can save you but you.
You christen it. Guess what didn't happen when you were born?
Exactly.
Yeah.
You weren't christened.
You weren't announced. You weren't properly announced, and you weren't christened. Yeah.
Exactly, because at one time that was the whole premise. When a child came into the world, you were getting to prepare to go through its christening, and nowadays that practice it has ceased. It no longer. So that's like you salvaging yourself. You have to rechristen yourself to the new world and the new you, because we're already born again just by the walk in which we walk. We have to know who we are within ourselves, within our hearts, and you can't lie to yourself.
Nope. Well, people can, and they do, but
yeah, they're quite good at
it. Dante's Inferno. Yeah, that's a good example. You gotta go through the different levels.
Down is out. Right.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yes,
why we
Lenny.
have the two brains. That's why we have the two brains. We have the cerebellum in the back, and then we have the two on top, was the two hemispheres, the right and the left hemisphere. And then you have that bridge, and that's the crossing that we have. We have to be able to cross that bridge because we have to know who we are and not lying to yourself. Then you're being earnest with yourself. And that's the only way to be. I yield.
Yeah, and I
I
want
wish
to
you
thank
wouldn't.
Lenny
I
Malley.
could listen to you talk for hours, man. It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure meeting you.
And I want to thank Lenny Malley. Yes, instead of taking God out of everything, put God first, back in everything.
Absolutely.
One nation under
That's
God,
the true
indivisible.
gospel.
Yep. We are supposed to be, again, if we want to recognize the nation, we can build the nation, but we're supposed to recognize it as a corporation, not as a patronymical society, for there is one Father which art in heaven. That's the problem. We've been taught and indoctrinated into a capitalist system to believe that that corporation is a nation and that we owe a debt to that nation. And we don't have any consent about it. And that's false. False, false, false. So anyway, that brings us to the conclusion of tonight. Again, I'm not going to take it any longer than that. I do appreciate everybody for coming up on panel. Thanks to John. He was up earlier. We've got I-Man, Hard Hat, and Bleak Narratives. And I want to invite everybody back. I love having people up on panel. Like I said, I-Man, I appreciate the Go Bail thing. I need those kind of things because I don't know it all. But the more I'm able to absorb, I'm telling you, I got a fucking sponge for a brain, guys. Give it to me, and I will help you sort it out. I have, this is more than a terabyte. It's more than 10 terabytes. I guarantee you, this is one of the greatest computers on earth. And if you learn how to use yours, it's just the same. So think about it.
You are appreciated, Keith. And like I said, the first time I think I ran into you, and I know everything in my life has not been haphazard. And that's because this journey, we were already connected. We were just now finding one another so we can build this new heaven and this new earth. And I thank all of us on here. And so it's
Okay, she's back. We lost you there, girl.
I said it's only us, just like the United States is. It's only us, and we have to unite in the, like you said, the United States, so we come together for the crossing over of this new fifth dimension. Because we're not the only one in the world. There are other beings that's going to be revealed to us, and we have to be like-minded, and that's why they're here to help us along in this new heaven and this new earth.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And Lenny, if you've got a channel, please let us know. We'd like to keep up on you. If you're one of those ones exposing the government and doing videos, we'd like to certainly keep you in our midst. In the meantime, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Hallowed be thy name. Remember, our Father is the only Father. There is no patronymical father as a nation. It's a corporation, and you have to learn how to negotiate it. It's negotiable instruments, so learn how to play them so they make music to everyone. In that, I'd like to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe. Anybody that can help share some love through the PayPal links, it's always appreciated. Every little bit counts. I need to get a new bike, so please do, please do. In the meantime, again, I appreciate everybody's support, and we'll see you again next time. Remember, I love you. I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me or not. So may everyone, I don't know why you're here twice, but there we go. May everyone be blessed by God and have a good night. Thanks again. Bleak, hang out. After this, we'll talk.